The Okanagan Lake Floating Bridge, also known as the Kelowna Floating Bridge, was the first lifting span pontoon bridge in the world. This means that a span of the bridge or a section of the bridge could be raised up to allow larger boats to pass through, and could provide up to 60 feet of clearance for them. Originally, there were plans to build a suspension bridge, but the lake bed proved to be too unstable, so the floating bridge was decided on instead. It was an engineering marvel in its day and provided benefits for more than just the people who live in the Okanagan Valley. The Okanagan Valley benefited greatly by the construction of the bridge, but the original motivation for building the bridge was expressed in an editorial of the Courier, in which it said, and I quote, "Many observers believe a bridge is a necessary measure. In the event of another war, troops and supplies could be funneled through the inland route to Alaska. The central Okanagan would also become the main evacuation center if the west coast was attacked by enemy bombers." Luckily, the bridge was never needed for this circumstance, but it did provide other benefits. Before the bridge was built, the only way to cross the lake was by ferry or barge, which meant that making the trip was slow and limiting. When the Hope-Princeton Highway was constructed, the traffic at the ferry terminals increased 300%, and trying to get across the lake became much more difficult. By building the bridge, transportation of people and goods became much easier and allowed Kelowna and Westbank to expand. The bridge was the first of its kind and required 2 years to build. Many people of different trades were required to build the bridge, and special concrete plants to help construction were created at the site. These plants were required to produce the massive amounts of concrete needed to create the pontoons that the bridge was built on. These pontoons are what support the bridge's weight and keep it afloat. Construction started in January of 1956 and continued until its official opening in July of 1958. The Premier of BC at the time, William Andrew Cecil Bennett, and Princess Margaret, the younger sister of Queen Elizabeth II, officially opened the bridge on July 19, 1958. This was a big deal, and approximately 30,000 people observed the official opening. 4,000 of those seats were reserved for school children from the Okanagan Valley. The bridge opening was also the first live televised event by CHBC. The bridge was very advanced for its time and carried a large price tag with it. The cost of building the bridge was $7.5 million. That was in the 1950s. In today's dollars, the bridge cost about $63.5 million. Because the bridge was so expensive to build, it began as a toll bridge, which means every time you cross it, you have to pay. This toll was to help pay for its construction. To cross the bridge, pedestrians and bicycles were allowed to cross for free, but people crossing on motorcycles had to pay 10 cents, 20 cents if they had a sidecar, and if you were in a car, the price was 50 cents. Larger commercial vehicles had to pay anywhere from 75 cents to $2. The tolls only lasted about 5 years though, and in 1963 they were removed, making it a free bridge to cross. This is a poem written by Peter Thiessen, who worked around the bridge and took pictures of it during its construction, from the building of the first pontoon until the bridge was finally completed. The poem is called The New Okanagan Floating Pontoon Bridge. Car by car went day by day across the bridge and on their way. The cars going over had to pay, but there's no waiting, no delay. The celebration of BC is here. This is BC's centennial year. As people went and tourists came, Kelowna gained unusual fame. Smoothly, easily, on we went, on stone and steel and new cement. Bridge workers lived here, paying rent, their fast big money easily spent. We saw the farms and fields of grass, long the new highway, smooth as glass. To cross the bridge there's but one way, a toll gate stop and toll to pay. Crowds of folk traveled, they traveled fast, along the new bridge, finished at last, over the floating pontoons all the way, like riding on clouds, anybody would say. When we got over the West Bank Ridge, beyond the long new highway bridge, there went the farmers up and down, busily shopping round the town. Year after year at regatta times, the tourists come in to spend their dimes. It's easy to cross the bridge today, and Kelowna wants them all to stay. When the tourists came and had a look about the bridge, how long it took, there was a man with a book to sell, the history of the bridge to tell. Pictures that show from beginning to end how laborers, steelworkers gave a hand, carpenters, pipefitters, welders too, till all the steel and stone was through. When final touches of the bridge come along, the floating pontoons are linked and strong. It's a miracle bridge, you can readily see, a credit to Canada and BC. If you like this book about the bridge from Kelowna to the West Bank Ridge, tell your neighbors, tell your friends. Now our little booklet ends.